What is up, cyber and crypto homies? This is episode number 114 of the Cybersecurity and Cryptocurrency Podcast. I am your host, Eric English. All the views and opinions on this podcast are solely my opinions and do not reflect the opinions of my employer. If you want to follow me on Twitter, I'm at CyberCryptoGuy. All right, so today we're going to kick off a podcast series about personal security and things that you can do to protect yourself. I think protecting yourself is one of the biggest things that we can all do to prevent identity theft and, financial theft and all kinds of things. So I'm going to run through a few different things today, and we will continue this series on the next episode. But I do want to cover quite a bit today, primarily around identity protection. And so we're going to kind of dive into some strategies to just help protect your identity in general and try to prevent identity theft. So, without further ado, identity theft, as we all know, is one of the biggest headaches that we all have to deal with, unfortunately. And identity theft is still a huge reason that hackers are doing what they do. They're trying to get money, right? That's what hackers want. Hackers want money. And to get money, sometimes they got to steal your identity. So, we're going to talk today a little bit about some of the strategies that you can use. And by the way, I want to give a huge shout out to Michael Basil. He had a podcast about privacy and security, and I learned a ton from him. He unfortunately has stopped doing his podcast and took all of his episodes offline. However, he still does have a website. It's called inteltechniques.com, and he's got all kinds of tips and tricks, and he does a lot of OSINT and privacy work. So a lot of the things that I'm talking about today were things that I learned through listening to his show and going to his website. And I've implemented a lot of these strategies as well myself, and it has certainly helped. So first and foremost, I think the biggest thing to protect your identity with is a credit freeze. Now, you may think, well, is that all I have to do is freeze my credit? I have some sort of credit monitoring service. So here's the problem with credit monitoring services. When you, let's say you were a part of the Equifax breach and they offered, a year or 2 years of quote unquote free credit monitoring. Well, the problem there is you have to leave your credit file unlocked at all of the credit bureaus so that they can quote unquote monitor your credit. Well, here's the problem with that. If your credit is not frozen and it's just being monitored, well, bad guys can still open an account in your name if they get all your information. So you're not preventing these fraudulent accounts from being opened at all. And so that's the problem. If your credit is not frozen and they're monitoring, sure, they can tell you about it after the fact, but why not just prevent it in the first place? So that's where a credit freeze comes into play. And you really want to freeze it at all three of the major credit bureaus, Experian, Equifax, and TransUnion. Now, there are other credit bureaus that you can freeze your credit through as well. Specifically, like when you sign up for utilities in your home, or you get internet for your home, or water bill for your house, or whatever it is, right? Typically, those companies check your credit file through a company like Check Systems, and there's a couple others as well. So you can go past the three major credit bureaus and also freeze your credit at the other smaller bureaus as well. Now, that may be a little extreme for some, and I understand that. However, it prevents somebody from opening utilities in your name, right? And ruining your name. So there are good reasons to do it. The challenge with freezing your credit, there's a couple different things. Number one, the credit bureaus, they really try to hide the free credit freeze on their site. You have to go digging, and it drives me crazy. I think is it Experian? I want to say it's Experian. Every time you go to their site, they're trying to get you to sign up for some monthly membership thing, and you do not have to sign up for anything to freeze your credit for free. Remember that. If they try to charge you something, you're not in the right spot on their website, okay? You can freeze your credit at all of the credit bureaus for $0. So do not pay for some sort of membership. Do not pay for LifeLock. Do not pay for credit monitoring because, again, LifeLock is the same as credit monitoring, right? You have to leave your credit file unfrozen. So fraudulent accounts can still be opened in your name. So freeze your credit is probably the biggest win for protecting your identity that you can do. So that's the number one thing. If your credit's not frozen right now, you should go out there, create an account at all 3 credit bureaus. If you don't already, create an online account and freeze your credit. It is 100% free. Do not let them dupe you into some membership. So that is number one. The credit freezes are huge. And in the show notes, I'll post Michael Basil's a link to his website with all of the credit bureaus, including those smaller ones like Check Systems and others that do like utility credit and things like that. I'll post a link to his site with all of kind of the opt-out or the credit freeze links, I should say. So you can use those links and go directly to each of those bureaus and freeze your credit. Now, some people wonder, well, does that mean I can't use my credit card if my credit's frozen? No, you can still use your credit card. Okay, this is preventing new credit from being opened in your name. So all of the credit you currently have now is not affected. Your mortgage, your, whatever it is, your credit cards, your car loans, those are still just fine, right? Anything new, like if you want to go buy a car, you have to unfreeze your credit to go buy a new car. Okay, so it is a little bit of a challenge. However, if you do this right, and you do it all through their website, it literally takes me 5 to 10 minutes to unfreeze my credit at all 3 credit bureaus, the major ones, when I'm going out to go get new credit. So it's very simple. Just make sure that you, of course, as always, use a good password for those sites, right? And make sure that you've got some sort of multi-factor setup as well to authenticate to those credit bureaus. Unfortunately, they still do the text message thing, but it's better than nothing. But definitely set up an account, get a password manager as well. That's probably another huge thing. But I didn't want to talk about password managers too much today, but I think I'm just going to go ahead and dive into that next, because your online accounts are so crucial, and everyone reuses passwords, right? We all do, right? It's so hard not to, unless you have a password manager. So you may say, well, I don't have the money to pay for a password manager. I can't afford a password. I can't afford a monthly fee or whatever. Okay. Bitwarden is 100% free, and it is awesome, and it works great. I have used a lot of the password managers out there. I've used 1Password. I've used LastPass. I've used Dashlane. And I've even used CyberArk's password manager. They have a workforce password manager. And that's outside of CyberArk's privileged access management product. Anyway, so I've used a lot of the password managers that are out there. Bitwarden is free. And really, looking at all of them, there's nothing that the other ones that you pay for, there's really nothing that they have that Bitwarden doesn't have. Now, I will say Dashlane has a VPN service that you get when you sign up with them. So if you also need a VPN, okay, you could kind of bundle those together. That's cool. Most of them have, quote unquote, dark web monitoring and stuff like that, right? So really, Bitwarden is just as good as the ones that you pay for. Now, which ones do you avoid? LastPass. Please do not use LastPass for your password manager. They've been hacked so many times. And even to this day, after their most recent hack where they stole a bunch of encrypted vaults, bad guys are decrypting those vaults, and they've actually stolen, I forget how many millions of dollars in cryptocurrency after they've cracked these vaults. So it's very important that you do not use LastPass, okay? If you are still using LastPass and you haven't changed every single password that you have in LastPass, you need to go change all your passwords. Hopefully you're not using LastPass. If you are, please switch. They've been hacked a ton, and it is not good. Some of their security practices as well were less than stellar. We won't dive into that, but just look up their last hack that happened to them. It was very, very bad. And it shed a light on a lot of other things that they were doing poorly as well. So go out there and look at what LastPass, was doing. They've since corrected a lot of that, which is good. But for me, it's too little too late. And who's to say they're not going to get hacked again? So anyway, make sure you're using a good password manager. Again, Bitwarden's free. It's really no excuses. And make sure that you have a unique password for every site that you go to. To tag along with your password manager, you need to have an authenticator app. I've used Google Authenticator in the past. I've used Authy. Actually, still use Authy primarily. I've used the Microsoft Authenticator app, and I haven't yet tried the one from Bitwarden, but they are all completely free as well. And make sure that you set up multi-factor on every account that you can. Now, some sites have limitations, as we talked about last episode, but the vast majority of sites do allow for an authenticator app. So please, if you want your accounts to be safe, especially your email accounts and your financial accounts, and also think about this too, if somebody gets a hold of your email account and they hack into your email account, think about all the things that are tied to your email account and that email address. Let's see, all your banking is probably tied to that. All your retirement or investment accounts are probably tied to that. If you do crypto, it's probably tied to that same email address, and all your social media is tied to that same email address. If they can get access to your email account, they can start doing password resets for all of these other services, like all your financial services and your 401k and whatever else. They can start resetting passwords because those password reset emails will go to the email account that the hackers have hacked into. So please protect your email accounts with multi-factor. Please, 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 and use a good password manager. The password managers also work on your phone, and they will autofill from your phone, so you really don't need to know what all of your passwords are. You need to know what the password is to get into your password manager, and that should be a very strong password. Everything else, though, it should be just completely random, and let the password manager remember it for you. That way you don't have to jack with it, right? So, password managers, multi-factor, credit freeze is kind of where we've started here. Some other good things to do is opt out. Opting out of these data broker sites where they, store all your information and sell it to everybody in the world. Opt out of all of those that you possibly can. And there are opt-out services out there. There's stuff like Delete Me. Abine Blur has one. I forget what it's called now. It may be Delete Me. They may own that piece, but Delete Me is a pretty good one. I've used Cloaked in the past. Cloaked is pretty good for that kind of stuff. So really, getting all your information off of the internet as best you can is another great step, because the hackers are going to gather all the information that they can about you and build a dossier or a profile on you, and then be able to, create or sign up for whatever service in your name, or get a credit card in your name, because they have your name, address, phone number, email address. They can even find your last, 7 or 8 addresses if you move around a lot. So opting out on all those sites, those data broker sites, is really, really important as well. Get all the information that you can off of the internet. You can use a service to do it, or you can do it yourself. It is very tedious, and it could take you a very long time. And the problem too that I've run into personally I tried to do it myself, and in doing so, I got it removed initially, and then 6 months later, they put it back out there. So it's this constant game of cat and mouse. And so if you don't want to continuously be checking for that stuff and continuously requesting your stuff be removed, a service to do it for you is at least a good start. And you don't have to sit there and do it and monitor it all the time. Let that service handle it for you. So those are paid services, though. So if you want to do it yourself, you can do it for free yourself, or you can pay a service to remove all your data. So it's up to you which way you want to go, but there's a lot of these data removal companies out there now, and that's also another good way to protect your identity. Some other stuff to think about is your tax return. Now, I know that you may be thinking, what? I mean, who cares if, what does somebody want to pay my taxes for me? That's not what I'm talking about. What I'm talking about is hackers can file, and I've actually had this happen in my family. Hackers filed a fraudulent tax return. with tax information to where that they would get money back. So they had a fraudulent W-2. They had this family member's name, address, social, you name it, and they were able to file this tax return with this fake W-2 with enough earnings and income to get a tax return. And they also claimed a bunch of expenses and other crap too. So the hackers ended up getting, I think it was upwards of $5,000 roughly from the IRS check that they were sent. And when my family member tried to go file their taxes, it says, oh, you've already filed your taxes. And they're like, wait a second. No, I didn't. So even if you owe taxes, hackers can send in a fraudulent tax return, with tax information that would get them a return. So a good way to protect yourself from, and really the biggest thing is, even if you owe like back taxes, right? Hackers, of course, if they get a hold of you and you owe back taxes, all right, fine. They're not going to get anything back. But if you don't owe back taxes or anything, and you don't want to deal with this hassle of this fraudulent return, because when this happened, my family member had to contact the IRS and go through all these steps, and it was a royal pain. It was such a pain, and it took another 8 to 10 months for my family member to be able to actually file their tax return, their correct tax return. So really, it's a hassle. And if you don't want to deal with this hassle, an IRS PIN is a very simple thing that you can sign up for through the IRS. And this IRS PIN is a PIN number that the IRS sends you in the mail. And when you file your taxes, you have to include that PIN number that they sent you in the mail. And you can't file your taxes without it. So that's a great way to prevent these fraudulent tax returns and prevent, having to jump through all these extra hoops and prove that, no, you hadn't already filed your taxes and it was just a mess. So try to avoid those kinds of things if you can. The IRS PIN is very, very simple. All right, some other stuff to think about. This is kind of an interesting concept, but it's called planting your flag, and it's kind of weird because you don't really think about this until, oh wait, I should have created an account there. So planting your flag is creating an account at like the 3 credit bureaus, for example. So if you currently don't have an account at the credit bureaus, a hacker could create an online account with your information that they stole, and now they are you to that credit bureau or to whatever service it is. So planting your flag is creating your account at those major services. Like, I know it sounds weird and you may never use it, but the unemployment in your state, you can just create the account. You don't have to file unemployment. What I'm saying is, to prevent someone from filing unemployment in your name, you go to that unemployment website and you just create your account and just sit on it. You don't have to use it unless you actually need unemployment, of course, but you can just create the account and sit on it. That way, hackers can't go and create an account in your name. So there's a lot of different services that you can do this with, and it's certainly a good idea with like the IRS, the credit bureaus, places like that, to plant your flag. Create your account there. Even if you never use it, create your account, because during that account creation, especially with the IRS and the unemployment offices and places like that, they need to verify your identity with your social security number. So with services like that need to verify your identity with your social, this is where you can plant your flag. So in planting your flag, it's just creating the account and just sitting on it. So that's kind of an interesting concept. I have done this for like unemployment, for example, in my state. I did it for the IRS's website. So outside of where I file taxes, I also created an account on the IRS's website and planted my flag. And at all 3 credit bureaus, which I use those credit bureau accounts oftentimes when I'm freezing and unfreezing my credit. So plant your flag anywhere that you can and prevent someone from opening that online account in your name. So other things that you can do to protect your identity and protect your finances too. There are debit and credit card masking services. So we all have subscriptions, right? You have your Netflix, you got your Hulu, you got your DirecTV subscription, you got your whatever it is, right? All the services, Apple Plus, Paramount Plus, Amazon Prime, all these companies, right, where we have all these subscriptions. Well, when those companies get hacked and your credit card number or your debit card number gets leaked as a part of that hack, guess what? Hackers can drain your account. So these credit card masking services, it's kind of like a password manager if you think about it. You can create a unique credit card number or debit card number for every site that you have a membership. So it's sort of like creating a separate password for every site that you have a membership. And when that site gets hacked, you can go and cancel and turn off or disable that masked credit card or that masked debit card. So it is super cool, and it allows you to really control. Also too, like if you sign up for a membership, don't really give them your real debit card number. Give them one of these masked debit cards. And a lot of these services too, they want you to call them to cancel because they're going to try to talk you out of canceling. Like, oh, sir, are you sure you want to cancel? We can give you 5 months free. You can just cut off that card that you signed up for that service with, and boom, they're not going to charge you anymore. So it's a really cool thing. The one that I use personally is through privacy.com. And again, I don't get paid for any of these, so there's no sponsorship here at all. These are just things that I've used. Privacy.com, Abine Blur has a service like this as well. I want to say Cloaked does too, or they're coming out with it very soon. So those are just some examples. Privacy.com is free, which is really cool. So again, these tools can help you in a lot of different ways, and they're free. So why not take advantage here? So create a separate debit card for every site that you have a membership with. So that's another way to protect your finances a little bit there, and also control those memberships and turn off those cards when you don't want to pay for it anymore, right? Rather than going online and, canceling your account and, or having to call them and they put you through the ringer, just turn off the card and they can't charge you anymore. So makes it really cool. And the last thing to talk about today for protecting your identity and your finances is a PO box. They also have what's called PMBs or personal mailboxes. So these, you can get a PO box, and for all the sites that say we need a physical address, you can actually pay the PO box. I think it's an extra, $15 a year. Super cheap, right? Where you can use the physical street address of that USPS office. So let's say the USPS office is 1234 Main Street and your PO box is number 12. So your address would be Eric English at 1234 Main Street, unit number 12. And, of course, city, state, zip, all that stuff. So that is one way to also protect your home address and make sure that your real home address doesn't get out there on the internet. And, of course, if it does, that's where the data removal services come in. But if it does, also, this is what hackers use to, again, steal your identity because they know your home address. They have all this information on you. So if you use a PO box, when you sign up for all these different things online, because think about all the things you sign up for online. Everything you sign up for, what do they want? They want your email address. They want your name, email address, phone number, and home address, right? On pretty much everything we sign up for. Now, with your banks and places like that, I would give them your actual address. But anything outside of that, like if you're signing up for a gym membership or something, they don't need your real home address. Give them this PO box address. Don't just give your home address out to anyone and everyone because, again, when that data gets leaked, hackers can use that to build a dossier on you and steal your identity much easier. So check out a PO box or a PMB. These are things that you have to pay for yearly. However, it can help. Especially, and also too, with all of these things that I'm talking about today, you have to consider your threat model and how big of a target you might be if you are an executive at a company and your name is all over that company, right? And everyone knows you're the CTO or you're the CIO or whatever. Well, in that case, I would say your threat model is much higher. You are going to be targeted because hackers know if you're in that C level, you're making some money. So they're going to try to take some of that money from you and they're going to target you more than anyone else. And this is why following all these steps helps to protect your identity and your finances and everything else using all these kinds of strategies. And again, shout out to Michael Basil. He has a book as well. It's called How to Disappear in America. And it's all about, most of the things I've talked about today, there are some others, but he goes into extreme detail on all these different things that you do. He even goes into how to buy a home anonymously or how to buy a car anonymously. And basically the gist of it is you have to get an anonymous LLC created. And I think you can only do that in 2 different states. I want to say it's like New Mexico and like South Dakota or North Dakota, one of the two. And so you create this anonymous LLC in one of those 2 states, and then you go to buy your house or buy your car. Anyway, he has full detailed steps if you need to go to that level. So, and of course, if you don't know, when you buy a home, your tax records are public for your house, which really sucks. So your name and your home address are public record for taxes. Like, gee, thanks, government. Really appreciate you there. And of course, guess what? You cannot opt out of that. They won't let you. So this is why having the anonymous LLC to buy the property, it comes in handy, or the anonymous LLC to buy the car, whatever else, right? So again, Michael Basil, How to Disappear in America, you can find it on Amazon. I don't get paid for this. This is just advice. But his book, I think, is like $20 or $30. Super cheap paperback. Anyway, really cool stuff to follow, but I've kind of given a high level of part of what he talks about, not all of it. He goes into very extreme detail, and it's a really cool read if you're into that. And if you need that kind of privacy in your life, that's a really cool book to check out. So anyway, I'm going to stop there for now. Next on the series, I'm going to talk about home network security and some of the tools that you can use at your house to protect your home network and your devices on your home network, and protect your privacy and anonymity and all those kinds of fun things on your home network. But I'm going to cut it off right there for now. And again, want to say thank you everyone for listening. And I'll be back next week for the next in this kind of personal security series that we're coming out with here. So part 2 will be next month. So stay tuned for that. And again, thanks everyone for listening. We'll talk to you guys next week.